Hi, this is Sianda. Sianda writes as usual, and it's the 23rd of March, I think. And yesterday we got some news on the continent that Mr. Achebe has passed on. Now, it is some very terrible news. At the age of 82, I think he is. I'm sure you know of him. If you don't know of him, I hope this video inspires you to check him out. But he's one of the best writers I have ever read. He absolutely changed my way of thinking when it came to literature and producing African literature. So he has such a huge role in my life. Now, in many African countries at secondary level, when you study literature, particularly if you're studying it for, I don't know, I think for IGCSE or something like that, you read Things Fall Apart. Now, that book, I think, what it did for me is it changed so much of my understanding of literature because when I started to read and write in my spare time and things like that, I think as I grew older, I noticed that the things that I was writing were actually not my own experiences. So very often on the continent, especially when you're young, you're exposed to a lot of European literature, American literature, you watch a lot of TV, you watch a lot of, externally produced media. So you end up kind of absorbing this voice and this perspective and this way of thinking that is actually not yours, if you understand what I mean. So I found myself writing about, and a lot of people still do this actually. If you go to a lot of high schools in Africa, where the students are exposed to a lot of European literature and things like that, you find that a lot of them are writing about New York or Chicago as if they've ever been there, but only because they've been exposed so much to that kind of media and thinking that they begin to absorb it as their own. So imagine now going from that perspective and then being introduced to Things Fall Apart. Now, let me tell you my own literary journey, because I am a huge reader. I've always been a reader. When people were making friends in high school, I was reading. But anyway, so when I was younger, I read, particularly when I was in high school, I read a lot of black feminist literature, especially from African Americans writers. The first book that I read, I think, was Possessing the Secret of Joy. No, it was actually Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. I can't remember who that's written by, but that's the first kind of black book that I read, quote unquote. So, and then I read Alice Walker and I read all these things and I absolutely loved it. And the first book I actually read from Alice Walker was Possessing the Secret of Joy. Now, that book deserves its own video, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but it was quite a book. It's quite heart-wrenching. I recommend you get it. Anyway, so I went from reading American literature and all this, and then I think in class we were introduced to Things Fall Apart. No, actually I read it before it was recommended in class because that's kind of my thing. Anyway, wow. Wow. For the first time, Africa to me was presented the way it is, if you understand what I mean. For the first time, because when I read African American literature, a lot of it, to be honest with you, was kind of this wishful thinking that they had about what Africa is like based on what they've been exposed to and things like that. But Chinua Achebe, first of all, he wrote beautifully. Very simple. It's a very simple book to understand. It is extremely absorbing in the sense that you end up feeling like you are actually in the world that he is describing. And what I liked about it was that he gave merit to African culture, which I don't know if you've been exposed to other people's versions of Africa, we seem like primates or, the most basic level of humanity. But with Achebe, what he did was he highlighted the intricacies and complications and subplots and undertones of African civilization, if you understand. Showed the systems of us, how we do things, the social hierarchy. It showed, I believe that to me it gave merit to my culture. Now, I'm not Nigerian or Igbo or anything, but I'm Tswana Swazi, and However, because I think, I don't know if we're all Bantu, I'm not completely sure, but there were a lot of similarities between that culture and my own, and I absolutely loved how the intricacies and sophistication of our culture was being brought forward in the most simplest, basic way. I absolutely loved it. So it was a great book because it opened my eyes to an understanding that it is very possible. In fact, no, listen, it is up to me to tell my own story the way that it is. You know, to write fiction in a way that captures my everyday life, even if it is fiction, but you know, captures my own perspective, my country, how it truly is, from the way I see it anyway. So it's very sad, I think, that he's gone. Specifically, since one of my life goals was to meet him, I was hoping, you know, to write an award-winning book and then, or something like that. And to me, he was my reward, you know. But anyway, it's 2013 now. That book was written, what, 50, 60 years ago? It's up to us now. We must be the new Chinua Achebe. Yes, he is considered the father of African literature, modern African literature, but it doesn't end here. We must now write our own stories about modern African cities and rural African cities. We must write our own stories about our people and all of that. You know, it's up to us now. Yes. So the legend is gone, but it's still there, and it's up to us to keep it alive, you know. We must not forget our own voices. If we must be taught anything, if I must be taught anything from Achebe, it was do not forget your own voice. Because what happens is we get so lost in everything else and you forget it. So I recommend everyone read that book. I read it 3 times, I think. It's absolutely amazing. You must read that book and you will understand why it's considered a legendary book. As well, I think it's a Penguin series, I think. So there will be other maybe writers, Bo Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I mean, we mustn't forget the other African, you know, literary greats. But anyway, this is about Chinua. So please check out the book and yeah. Sienda writes again. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I have a website, I'm on YouTube. You're watching me on YouTube right now. So subscribe and comment and share.